Uh-oh, gotta break that glass. Broken glass everywhere. Now, this was very, very informative, but it could be information overload. You're gonna have to go through it 2 or 3 times. I'm back with another book review, When the World Was Black, by Dr. Supreme Understanding. Let's kick it.
We've only just...
Oh, yes, indeed. I like this.
Now, I'm about to civilize the whole classroom. When the World Was Black by Dr. Supreme Understanding. Now, let me start off by saying, just like I did in another book review, How to Hustle and Win, I met the God, Supreme Understanding. And I actually just met him again, I want to say maybe in 2 months ago, right? And they was doing a community cleanup. The brother actually, with the God, peace to the God, C Savior. C Savior actually is the God that's been bringing them down to the Macon area. And they got a tore down lot, and they building a greenhouse for the kids, so I came out there and got some footage and talked to the God again. I actually talked to the God probably for a couple seconds about me reading this book, and I was like, yo, God, I know for a fact that you ain't just put this book together in 30 days. And he was like, nah, it took a while, so that was mad peace to chop it up with the God. So peace to the God, Supreme Understanding, and much respect, and peace to the God, see Savior. Me and the God been building lately. We lost contact for a little while, but we've been back in the saddle. So let's get into it, man. When the World Was Black by Dr. Supreme Understanding. Now, this book, like I said, is definitely informative. It talks about things in history, that you may have heard of, and it kind of give context to a lot of that stuff. A lot of different periods, the Neolithic period, the Negroid, the Mongoloid, the Caucasoid, the Neanderthal. He goes in on that Neanderthal, the Pygmy people. He just runs down the list, through history. And, he gets into anthology, archaeology, anthropology. He even talk about the Black Europeans. You ever heard of that? The Black Europeans. One thing I can say about the God Supreme Understanding in his books, he gives a lot of good context and a lot of parallels to different things, and certain things that I may have been researching or may have researched before. Going through some of his books, it brings to light and gives clarity to a lot of those things. So naturally, when we speak about when the world was black, we talk about the first people to write, our hair, certain teachings, religion, and just things like that. That was way back in the days, man, in the ancient times, but this was a very in-depth book, and if I'm not mistaken, this is part 1, so it may be a part 2 floating around somewhere if the God got around to it. But just overall, this is a very, very good book, and I do recommend this book. But on my book reviews, I just go through the book and I pull out certain materials that I find interesting, that I would like to pull out. It's when I do these book reviews, it's more topics than that. But I'm just trying to chop the video down, and just shed some light on what I've been getting down with. A lot of people always ask me, where do I get my knowledge of self, and where do I find these books? What do I be reading, and this, that, and the third. And that's what this book review playlist is about. So do me a favor, go to my channel and subscribe to the channel first of all, but then click on that book review playlist and see what I got going on, man. I'm digging in them scrolls. But let's get into it, man. When the World Was Black by Dr. Supreme Understanding. So let's do the title some justice. When the World Was Black, the Untold History of the World's First Civilizations. Volume 2 of the Science of Self. Part 1, Prehistoric Culture. That's a long title, but that's what it is. But let's get into it. And it starts out powerful with the foreword of this book by one of our great elders, Renoko Rashidi. Go do the knowledge and do some research on the great God, Renoko Rashidi. But on this part, he talks about the meaning of civilization. Elijah Muhammad defines civilization as one having knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, refinement, and is not a savage in the pursuit of happiness. See, he had to bring out the great one. He had to quote the great one, Elijah Muhammad. So peace to that. Civilization is found wherever the people are one, meaning a collective that enjoys shared access to knowledge and information, shared decision making, and shared resources within a culture that allows for all to participate equally. That's his meaning of civilization, man. You know what I'm saying? Go do the knowledge to civilization. You know, because I'm about to civilize these savages. Now, this one was interesting when he talks about writing. The development of true writing began about 4000 BC with pictographic images, particularly name seals and other markers of ownership. Whoa, that's deep, man. A purpose of writing was so people can mark what's theirs. You know what I'm saying? That was interesting. That's a good way of looking at the purpose of writing. He goes on to say, because by that time, we had eroded our systems of collective ownership to the point where we needed to mark what belonged to whom. That's very, very interesting, right? One of the purposes of writing was to mark ownership. I never knew that. I never even thought about that, man, but put that in your memory bank, man, and ponder on that for a minute. But Joe, but Joe, this is how you can tell if somebody read a book, right? He threw a story in this book, and it threw me for a loop for a couple pages, right? He was talking about this underground city called, if I'm not mistaken, Ankara, right? I want to say it's an underground city, and it was, flooded with jewels and crystals and this, that, and the third, right? So I'm like, damn, I never heard of this city before. I never heard anybody talk about this city. I get to reading that shit, and the city is not even real. But that's one of those quirky things that you can tell if somebody really read a book, you know what I'm saying, to see if they picked up on that. But that was cool, man. That was funny. Ankara. This was another good one also. Within the past 2 centuries, scholars of considerable authority were writing history books that relied upon the authority of the Bible to prove that the first man was white. That blacks were the cursed descendants of white, and that all human history occurred within the past 6,000 years. They was using the Bible to do that, man. That's interesting. That is very, very interesting. We can, however, safely say that all humans on the planet today were descended from a single ancestral population that can be traced back to East Africa about 200,000 years ago. He pointed out somebody else that you need to do the knowledge to and do the research to. Boaz. Remember that name. Boaz credited ancient Africans with the origins of iron smelting, grain cultivation, and animal domestication, saying blacks pioneered these important practices long before they spread to Asia and Europe. Now, we already had the knowledge. We was already doing our thing. He pointed out somebody else that you need to do the knowledge to and do the research to. Boaz. Remember that name. Boaz credited ancient Africans with the origins of iron smelting, grain cultivation, and animal domestication, saying blacks pioneered these important practices long before they spread to Asia and Europe. Now, we already had the knowledge. We was already doing our thing. In the 60s, we had the emergence of the Black Consciousness Movement, which was basically the intellectual side of the political Black Power movement. The scholars who lectured and published in this period were using the works of classic historians and anthropologists who used racial terms to describe the people who built our ancient civilizations or made other contributions to the past. Boaz was one of those scholars and can be seen in works of his like The Mind of the Primitive Man and Race, Language, and Culture. In fact, Some historians credit Boaz as a critical contributor to early Afrocentric thought. Franz Boaz. Do the knowledge to him. So who are we really? One thing's for sure, we can't define it with geographic or linguistic identities. This is partly why the 5%, peace to the gods, group the human families of the planet Earth into shades of humanity. That is, the black, brown, and yellow people are the original people, and then there's white folks. Peace to the gods. This was cool too when he talks about hair. I don't have any, but I thought it was very, very cool and very, very interesting. The first human settlers of the planet, having dispersed from Africa, may have had woolly hair, but our original people don't have woolly hair, depending on where they had settled and how long they had been there. Some had woolly hair, some had curly hair, some had coarse hair, wavy hair, and some particularly living in the humid tropic climates had what's known as peppercorn hair, or very tightly curled coils of hair that remain close to the scalp. Whoa, peppercorn. Whoa, you threw me for a loop with this one. In fact, the undeniably black people of the Solomon Islands often have naturally blonde hair. At first, anthropologists assumed the European settlers had contributed to the native gene pool. Well, ain't that something? Here he talks about the origins of man. Before the emergence of Homo sapiens, the planet was settled by an older species of man known to anthropologists as Homo erectus. We tend to give Homo sapiens all the credit for man-made technology and other human advances, but this is only because Homo erectus is considered primitive ancestor of the Homo sapiens. And right here, he quotes that preacher of that mega church, in Texas, Joel Osteen. As Christian preacher Joel Osteen has said, you have winter in your DNA, you have winter in your blood. I take it a step further and note that your ancestors survived the Neanderthal wars, climate change, malaria outbreaks, and political collapse, the Ma'afa, and all kinds of other challenges that eliminated so many of their peers. And here you are. That's beyond being a winner and a survivor. You are the original man and woman. You are the Alpha and the Omega. You are the Exodus, the journey, and the final destination. The only question is, what will you do to ensure that your descendants survive to carry on your legacy 200,000 years from now? Hey, that's a cold piece, but that's from the pale man, the Caucasian, Joel Osteen. But that's cool that he put that in there. This was interesting, but this comes up in a lot of books, when it talks about slavery and the slave trade and how they did Africans, how they did, just original people, and what the European brought to the lands, and it wasn't good. But you'll hear this repeated over and over in a lot of books. Wherever Europeans went, they brought a ton of diseases such as syphilis, influenza, smallpox, measles, and tuberculosis. Most of the people that encountered had never had such diseases, so they had no resistance to the illnesses and began dying rapidly. Since we ain't never had none of them beast illnesses, we didn't have nothing in our immune system, that will fight it off. You know what I'm saying? We just ain't have that in us because we never seen that. That's what they bought, that nastiness. You know what I'm talking about? But you will see that repeated in a lot of books, in a lot of manuscripts. You know what I'm saying? This was informative also when he talks about the Moors in Islam. This was cool and this was interesting. In West Africa, Bantu people built massive empires that, until the 1400s, rivaled any European nation except perhaps those under Moorish rule. Yet, as we know, many of the Moors who introduced civilization to Spain and Italy were themselves Bantu people united under the flag of Islam. Yo, man, put that in your memory bank. Put that in your arsenal. But that was a dope piece. Here he talks about exploration and, why did we explore the world? Before we get into the journey of man, let's get one thing clear. We didn't travel the globe to explore like Europeans did, original people, because we have always understood the fractile nature of the physical world. Didn't get excited about the world beyond because we knew it would be very much like the world within. Yo, man, think about that one. White folks describe the Americas and Europe as one social entity. They call it the West. Their empires in the Americas and Europe are collectively known as the Western world, which is crazy if you think about it because North America and Europe are thousands of miles apart. There's an entire ocean between them, but that doesn't stop them. They consider it one world for social purposes. Meanwhile, Africa, which is physically connected to Asia, and Asia, which is actually not separated from Europe in any meaningful way, are all considered separate entities. That's something to think about, man. The entire planet Earth belongs to the black man. He simply chose the best parts for himself to call home. Peace to the God. Go do the knowledge. This is another interesting one. When I said he talks about things that we use every day, but we never talk about the origin, or do we even know where the origin came from? This one, he talks about dogs. Yes, we made dogs. To be technical, we bred wolves from the wild into domesticated dogs. If you do somehow get into the business of breeding wolves, you will learn that wolves don't bark. We bred out that ability to bark. We also bred these dogs to be the only animals that can respond to our eye movements. See, I bet you never knew that one. See? The God gave me the knowledge to give to you. Peace, but you never knew it. You never heard that about dogs before. I know you haven't, so write that one down also. But it is a lot of information in this book. Like I said in the beginning, this one of those books you'll have to read, then you'll have to ponder on it, and then you'll have to read it again to get you some understanding, But go and do the knowledge to it. On this part, I'll bring out 2 or 3 more little points, but, because that's just what it is. But right here, he talks about the Mongoloid. The Mongoloid is one of the 3 essential identity types or races. It's 3. Negroid, Mongoloid, and Caucasoid. None of them sound pleasant. In fact, Mongoloid is offensive anywhere outside of an anthropological context because its early use derived from calling people Mongols because they had features that white people associated with Down syndrome. Boy, the beast, man. I guess I'll pull out one more, something you probably never knew. Weren't the Cro-Magnons the first white people? Nope, not them either. We was always here, man. Like I said, when the world was black, by Dr. Supreme Understanding. Go and do the knowledge to it, man. Go and do some research, man. And, just go and look at how they tried to do us in history and how they tried to rewrite history and how they basically just doing a whole lot of untruths. In my books, most of my books, I put $1 in it. So I done read this twice, so I'm going to leave that one in now. So if I pass it to you, that $1 should be in the back of the book, man. But it's the Bearded Heru. This was When the World Was Black by Dr. Supreme Understanding. Yo, go check them other videos out. Them some cold pieces. And like I said, go and subscribe to the channel and look at my book review playlist, man. There's some cold pieces. It's the Bearded Heru, and everything is real. Peace.
We've only just
Oh, yes, indeed. I like this.